And even when I click join without video, it won't do a thing. So I don't know what's wrong. So I guess I'll just listen to you guys, and I don't know why I can't see you though.
All right, well, if we hear you snoring, we'll wake you up.
You what?
And if we hear you snoring, we'll wake you up.
Is now streaming live on YouTube.
Well, if she wants to say something, she could raise her hand. We'll see that and tell her.
Yeah.
Or I can yell.
Yep.
Just raise your hand. We'll see that.
Darren,
Yes,
hey, Darren, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just saw a thing come up as it's streaming live on YouTube.
That's correct. So if this is a live meeting, just like the Board of Aldermen. So if anybody wanted to attend the tree board meeting, they could click on the YouTube link that's on our website and follow along. They wouldn't be able to participate, but they could hear.
Okay. Okay. Maybe Carol will do it then.
Okay, well, I think everybody's here that's going to be here.
Well, go ahead and go. I mean, you know, I'm sorry I can't see everybody, but, and I'm sorry you can see me, but
Okay. Okay, who do we have missing? Ken?
Present.
Is Ken on?
Ken's here.
Here he is. Okay, everyone's here. You ready to call this meeting to order? Guys can hear me?
Yep, I think we're ready, Roy.
Okay. Let's call the meeting to order. Everybody in attendance, and Dave or Jacob is in Columbia. Is that correct? Okay. The additions to the agenda are the issue with sweet gum tree and the and our code with the Gary, help me out. Which one of the codes is it? It's a landmark tree.
Yeah, here, if you want, I can kind of explain what's going on.
It's an oak tree, by the way. It's an oak tree.
So we have a landmark tree ordinance that states if a tree is a certain size, it has to meet certain requirements for the city to allow removal. Typically, those requirements or the three requirements are what I sent you, which is if the tree poses a threat to personal safety or property damage, or if the tree is diseased or dying, or if the tree, if somebody wants to do property improvements that requires the removal of the tree. Now, staff normally has taken the approach of if it's a normal function of a tree, because a lot of times we get people that would like to remove trees for sweet gums that are dropping or for debris that's fallen on roofs or whatever. And people have said that they were worried about slipping on a sweet gum before. And we've taken the approach that it's a normal function of the tree. So we haven't allowed removal. Now we've got a unique situation here where somebody has stated that they got hurt slipping on an acorn. So kind of want some opinion on how we should interpret this code, some direction that staff can follow on the best way to interpret this code. I was trying to get some guidance from other cities on what they do. And from what I can find, we are the only city in St. Charles County that has a code that requires even a permit to remove a tree. I checked Kirkwood and Baldwin and De Pere and Town and Country, and I couldn't find anything that would give us any guidance. So it's kind of on our own, I think, as to how we interpret this. Now, I know that this was put in place because I don't know the history of it, but I'm sure that it was put in place because we felt that it was important to protect trees and the trees would last generations. But now that somebody got hurt and, are we interpreting this incorrectly? I guess is my question for the board.
Whose tree is it? Is it on their property?
It is on their property.
Well, then it's their responsibility to clean up their acorns.
And what we typically get are more elderly people who can no longer maintain their property the way they used to. So this also applies to, we get calls about landmark trees that are so big that acorns are going in their gutters, or maple droppings are going in their gutters. The gutters are overflowing. They can't keep up with it. So it becomes, they get worried about, damage to their property. But again, we've taken the approach that, these are things that can be remedied by cleaning. So we haven't allowed it. But again, we haven't got into a situation where somebody actually claimed that they got hurt or injured from slipping on a tree. So this is kind of new territory for us.
Well,
I have
can
a
I say something here? I had 2 sweet gum trees removed from my property because of stepping on the things and almost turning your ankle and things. I had no problems getting an okay to get it removed, I guess because it wasn't a landmark tree.
Yeah, if it's a landmark tree, if it's not a landmark tree, it requires no permit from the city. The only time permits are required by the city or from the city is if it meets landmark status.
But to me, if it's a safety issue and it's a landmark tree, it's just a bigger problem.
And maybe that's the bigger question is the landmark tree code important? I think that anybody can make the argument of any tree needs to be removed for whatever reason. And, whether it's falling on a sweet gum or whether it's picking up branches and gets hurt, so just some guidance on, how we should approach this, or if the landmark tree code is necessary would be good.
Well, is the ordinance really enforceable from the standpoint that I know the guy 3 doors down from me, I heard chainsaw and I looked out and I know it was a landmark tree that he cut down, but I don't know what the state of the tree was. But in about 2 or 3 days, it was gone. They had chopped it all up and carried it away. But, it kind of comes back to that's private property and that tree is their property.
Yeah, Joe, and
Here's a question. Is there anything in us being, getting the Tree City designation, does that have anything to do with having designation for landmark trees?
it does not.
Okay.
I want to say something else. It sounded kind of silly when you said she slipped on an acorn, but these acorns are falling on her walkway that go between her front door and her driveway, and she's in her 80s. She's already fell in the dark on these and had her whole shoulder had to be replaced. So it's kind of important to her.
Can fall on it.
I know I got a pin oak out in my front yard that's a landmark tree. My dad and I planted it in 1982. And my driveway is like a damn roller rink. If, and I kind of either pray for a strong wind or a storm. I get out there with the blower and blow them off, but it is really, I know about the acorns and it's just a shame, you end up in this situation, but it's, I guess, he's going to pay a lot of money to get a tree like that removed.
Well, she's already started having it removed, and somebody came by and told her to stop. I thought she'd said it was code enforcement, but apparently it wasn't. So some of the limbs are already been taken down.
What is the penalty for if you take down a landmark tree and somebody catches you after the fact? What happens?
If you can prove that it was a landmark tree, which if the tree is gone, we really have no proof, because the way the code is written is you measure 4 feet off the ground, and if it's 24 inches wide, then it's landmark. But if the tree is gone, you can't measure 4 feet off the
Right,
ground.
I'm just saying, what if it was a 50-inch tree, it was a landmark tree, and it's gone?
It would go to a judge's discretion with a maximum fine of $500. But that's if the judge wants to fine it at all. It's totally the judge's decision.
I remember a few years back, that lady up there got fined $250 because she took out that, it's a pretty ugly maple tree. But the tree guys come by and cajoled her into cutting that down because they said it was gonna ruin her driveway. And she tried 3 times to get a permit, and Laurie kept telling her no.
I thought if it was going to hurt the foundation of your house, if the roots get to the foundation of your driveway, I thought that was legitimate to cut it down. Am I correct or wrong on that?
That is correct. If it's causing property damage, it can be removed.
Okay.
Well, then they said this was, the roots were getting under her driveway, and I didn't look at that. She told me this after we filled out her application, but you said that Kim went by there and didn't see it.
No, the
No, not
pictures that
Kim,
she,
Laurie. When we had the Laurie was our arborist back in the day, but and really I went by there a few times because I was just kind of perplexed by the whole thing. And this tree was between the properties, and they had poured a new driveway, and then one of these tree services came by and says, you know, that tree's gonna ruin your new driveway.
Oh,
So then she started trying to get the tree cut down, and they told her no. She cut it down anyway, and she got fined $250.
How many applications do you get for removing landmark trees, and what are their reasons?
boy, it varies. I would say, and Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, it's maybe 10 to a dozen a year,
And for what
somewhere
reason?
around there.
What's the
And
reason?
for the most part, people have good reason. It's most of the time people don't want to get rid of a landmark tree. It's, you know, their tree is severely stressed or dying, and we do allow removal. I think the applications that we decline are pretty few and far between.
Well, they don't want to get rid of this tree. It's just, for them, it's a safety factor. They planted it in '89, I think she said.
This is Roy. I assume the tree was there when they bought the property?
They said they planted the tree in 1989. That's all I remember.
Oh, they planted, okay.
That's a good sized tree then.
mm-hmm.
What, can I ask Jacob and Darren, what do
Well,
you
is
think
there-
about this? I mean, it sounds like we're the only city around that has this rule. Maybe it's antiquated, you know, restrictions, and maybe need to take it off. I don't know.
Oh, no.
You know, I see both sides of the argument. You know, I see the
Okay.
side that this is your property. You should be able to do what you want on your property. I also see the fact that this was probably put in place, and I assume Lake St. Louis wasn't the outlier with this code. I assume that this code was in other places at some point, and it still could be out there. I just can't find it. But I'm sure that code was put in place because people felt that they needed to protect trees for generations, and why they chose landmark in the certain size, I'm not quite sure. So, you know, I think an argument can be made both ways. Where the city falls as regarding liability, I honestly don't know. So if we declined a landmark tree removal and somebody did get hurt, I don't know what liability the city incurs in a situation like that.
Well,
You know, I agree with you, Darren, because I see both sides. You know, I see our neighbor has a sweet gum, or the person across the street has a sweet gum tree, and he's elderly, and I'm thinking he may have slipped on one of the sweet gum balls and hurt himself. But I know he's constantly getting them up. But on the flip side, I don't know if we start allowing everyone to cut down trees and let's say someone wants to grow a vegetable garden and they clear out all their trees. You know, I can see both sides, people starting to clear out too many trees and then some people who are getting hurt. So I don't know the answer to this one.
Well, if the safety issue is a reason for cutting it down, how safe or unsafe do you approve or not approve? I don't understand that part.
I agree on the safety issue, but if we just do a blanket statement that they can cut it down, that's where I'm thinking then people who are going to want to grow, maybe like we can't grow a vegetable garden because we've got too many trees. So if someone wanted to grow a vegetable garden, they could get rid of all their trees and, you know, start. Yeah.
Well, the application says personal property is excuse me, I don't want to get to step on somebody, but the application asks if it's a safety problem.
Mhm.
And if it's going to ask that question, they should take it into consideration.
But you can slip on wet leaves too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
These
if
are
you got
acorns that are
leaves in
falling on the walkway.
your driveway, you can slip on those.
Oh, where does it end? In the wintertime, you got ice and snow.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's not a tree.
But the city don't come in and remove your snow and ice from your sidewalk or driveway.
Mhm.
Hey, Darren,
Yes, sir.
is there room on this issue for a variance on the request? It's a variance because of this type of tree, if it causes issues, and it's going to cause issues, we all know that. It's Missourians have been falling on wheat gums for decades, centuries. Is there a way that we could justify this with a variance
You know,
on
I think,
the landmark tree ordinance?
you know, I think that we can consider any variance. I think where it gets into a little gray area for staff is if we approve because somebody fell, then anytime somebody submits for any reason, whether it's a gumball tree that they're afraid to slip on, even though they haven't, if it's a gumball tree that they're saying that they're afraid that they're going to fall on a gumball, or roots are sticking out of the ground and they're going to trip over it, or they hurt their back from raking, or whatever. I just think that there's a lot of open-ended situations that can come from this. Right or wrong, I mean, we can certainly use our best judgment on all of these. It's just because these are all public documents, I think we need, well, regardless, I think we need to be consistent in how we apply this code for everybody.
What about the
Could
liability?
the variance specify the sweet gum tree?
I'm sorry, Roy?
Could if there was a variance to this, could it specify that it's for this tree, for this species of tree?
Well, I think if we did, it would be multiple trees. And I think it would have to be any tree that produces acorns or gumballs or anything that somebody can slip on.
Well, then if you do anything someone could slip on, that's wet leaves. So in every tree that's not, it is going to shed leaves.
Yeah, and I think and you're right, Dan, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is this is, kind of a bigger issue than just acorns.
Yeah.
You could surely consider adding some particular species to the species list in terms of the ones that are not approved or recommended for not recommended for future planting. So that's a way to try to get ahead of that problem on the front end. I will say in my experience that you're always going to have people calling and complaining about sweet gum trees. Unfortunately, a lot of people invest in a home but don't realize what tree species they have on their property and don't necessarily fully grasp the upkeep associated with particular species. That's very common. I don't see that ever really going anywhere. If I could just take a quick minute to kind of give my spiel. I don't know the historical background on the ordinance or what kind of was the genesis of the thought process there, but typically these landmark classifications, whether they're related to, oftentimes they're related to future development and trying to preserve the bigger trees. In this case, Lake St. Louis's ordinance is taking it a step further, and they add, they're requesting permission to even remove any of those trees at all. I'm sure that the genesis of that had something to do with trying to preserve the best and largest canopy in the community. You know, your forested areas are a huge component of Lake St. Louis. I'm sure that's a reason why a lot of people even want to locate to the community, is based on that natural aesthetic. So I imagine there was some logic there or some sort of thought process. Darren and I talked about this today, and we were talking about kind of the ambiguity of dancing between, you know, making decisions for someone else as it relates to something that's on their property and personal property rights. That's always a challenging conversation. And anytime we approach any of these requests, we're essentially looking for reasons to give the applicant what they're wanting. I think some outliers we need to consider too are oftentimes people kind of get steered down a path by maybe some tree services that aren't reputable, and also say that things need to occur on a tree that aren't necessarily their only options. So we've had a lot of positives just from talking through alternatives with homeowners too. I think that as it relates to this particular situation, and Darren keeps hitting the nail on the head on this one, is that, you know, what is a safety hazard? That's very ambiguous. You know, that's subjective. I think you could make the argument as it relates to acorns or sweet gum balls that that's just related to regular homeowner upkeep. You know, why is the solution to remove the tree? Why can't we hire a person to clean up the yard? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong there. I'm just saying that that's that ambiguousness of it, I think, is what makes it challenging. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
And Jacob, you brought up a good point where, Gary, you had asked how many landmark tree applications we get a year. And, you know, Jacob, for almost everyone that we get, he contacts the homeowner and walks them through the scenarios. And there have been some times where the homeowner decided not to remove the tree and to prune it, or, you know, take some other measure. So, you know, I do see the benefit. You know, I think from our standpoint, one, we need to decide whether this code is still relevant and whether we should keep it. And if so, then maybe we address, you know, how to enforce it. And Jacob was also right. Everything that I found, all the other codes was basically codes related to development that is occurring, not necessarily residential that's been around for 40 years.
So in order for this conversation to continue, we should probably pass a motion to maybe, has code enforcement actually visited with the owner?
I did.
No.
I can't really hear what you're saying, Roy. You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, my internet, I apologize, my CenturyLink internet in and out quite a bit. So I guess if conversations I'm hearing is we need to maybe just get more input with the owner and discuss, maybe set up a conversation with the owner about alternatives. And, you know, maybe remind them of what the tree ordinance is here for, what we have it for. And I think Jacob made that very clear and said it very nicely. So if we could do that before we make any big decision on modifying the code, or maybe we don't need a landmark tree code, but I think we do. I think it's unique. So if we could maybe visit with the homeowner and discuss their options, would that be something anybody, does that make sense, Darren?
Yes,
As
I
I
mean,
mentioned that, I don't think at this point that,
I don't know
I
if
don't
it's
think
going to
they've
do
had
much.
any contact.
I don't know if it's going to do much good in this situation. I think the homeowners are aware of what our code is. I assume that they understand why. But the fact is she got hurt and it was from an acorn, and they either want to take the tree down or not. I don't know if there's anything that we can recommend that's going to solve that issue for them.
You know,
So maybe,
Leading up,
go ahead, Ken.
to take down a tree, a 24-inch hardwood tree has got to be, I don't know, what is it, Jacob? 200-300 years old? It's got to be huge.
No,
This is a thin oak tree, so I think they said, Gary said they planted it in '89 or something, so
30 years.
Would
That's
that
that's
you,
realistic for that size of tree.
If
Would
somebody wants to cut a tree down that big, what would it cost, Jacob, to cut a tree down? $4,000 or $5,000 and haul it away? They're not going to care about a $250, charge.
That depends on a myriad of things, Ken. It depends on access to the tree, whether they can get a bucket truck to it, if someone's going to have to climb it. Are they hauling the material away? But sure, it could be thousands of dollars potentially for a large tree like that. I just want to add one more thing. I think that what's complex about this particular issue is, again, that ambiguity about a safety situation. So if there's some apprehension on the side of the city about wondering if there'd be fallout about whether we're making a decision on whether a situation is safe or not, I'd almost recommend that anytime someone mentions they feel like their safety is compromised, that we just approve it. Maybe it's as simple as making that clause in the ordinance, so that way we can avoid any potential fallout if there's some sort of disagreement there. I hate that maybe that would create an inner loophole, but it definitely would avoid the potential fallout of, being liable if something else were to occur.
Where does she live? Where does this lady live?
Lives on Normandy. It's not that she's afraid it's going to be a problem. It has been a problem already.
Yeah. Okay, here's another little glitch in that, because I was just thinking our neighbor who has a sweet gum tree across the street, our next door neighbor and I do not like those sweet gums. And our next door neighbor has commented about that being dangerous. So I would hate to have open a loophole there where someone would say, because we get the sweet gums in our, they go all over. They just don't stay in one yard, and so do the acorns. So then are you opening up a loophole to say, oh, they have this tree that's going to pose a danger to me, and I want them to take it down? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, I go by and sweep the acorns off this lady's driveway every week if she'd want me to.
Can you come over to my house every week in about 3 weeks and pick up my 400 black walnuts?
There you go. That's a good one. And that is a real expensive tree.
Or come to our house and pick up all the limbs from the trees, the little limbs that
Yeah.
keep falling off.
Carol, you got yourself a side job.
Yeah, really. Well, I mean, I would, if she was that upset or if she got hurt, I would think somebody, maybe a neighbor or somebody would help her out. I sure would help one of my neighbors if that was in.
And that brings up another thing, and this is probably cost prohibitive, but would it be, what about having the Parks Department, when you have for people who are senior citizens or in a certain category, that once a week people go and they just use a blower. All you need to do is walk down and use a blower and blow the acorns back into the yard and off the someone resident sidewalk. I don't know if that opens a lot of legal issue on going to someone's private property.
I,
No,
I
I
think
think
that's a
we're-
good idea.
everybody- Done.
The
Everybody would think, oh, if she's having it done, why can't I have it done?
liability there is implicit when, if they're coming out once a week, on that 6th day is when she falls.
Yeah,
And they say, well, the city didn't remove the acorns, so.
that's true. Yeah, so that's a problem. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Mm.
No, if they're gonna spend thousands of dollars to take down a tree, it seems like they pay some kid money to police their yard,
Right, I agree.
$20 or whatever, but it is, again, you get back to that private property issue, and they are responsible for their own safety, but it seems like a very punitive solution to cut down a tree because, it's dropping a few, and those acorns don't drop every year, do they, Jacob?
That depends on the species. White oak groups actually do produce acorns every year, and black oaks are every other, meaning the previous year's generation is created that previous year. But one thing I want to, because I feel like I've gotten a little off track here, I want to circle back to Gary's original information, is that what's unique about this situation too is that the homeowners have already decided they want to remove the tree. Someone came when the operation had already started and shut them down. So I don't think this is really an applicable thing to suggest paying a hired person to clean the acorns up for them or something at this point. I think from my perspective, we're past that point. She was injured. They probably have a sour feeling about the tree altogether now. Who's to say if the city denied their claim, they wouldn't find some way to lead to the mortality of it down the road? That's why I'm kind of in a place now, and I'm not trying to influence you, where, especially if we're worried about, liability, about making decisions about what's safe or unsafe for people, I think that maybe that safety thing is just a trigger word that we automatically, use that as an approval. And I understand the fear as you, elaborated on, Diane, about that loophole, but I think it's the fear of us telling someone they can't do it, then they get hurt, and then what happens after that is really the concern too.
Okay.
Well, I think we're doing the right thing, Jacob. When you said you've been going out, you've been explaining the ups and downs of the whole thing. And if we're doing that education process, at the end of the day, it's their decision. And I don't know that we're really beating them over the head, because it's really a sad thing to lose a tree like that with 30 plus years of growth. But I don't know if, you say the lady's 80 years old, that tree would outlive her another 80 years. I mean, there's a lot of, it's not a black and white issue, really.
Well, I think a lot of people use safety as a crutch. I've been listening to these stories and P&Z and boards and all that stuff, but in this case, she actually had the problem. She had to have her shoulder replaced. So I think she's really serious with having a problem with it.
Well, Gary, she could have fallen in her bathtub and that situation could have occurred.
Yeah, but we don't have an ordinance saying you can't have a bathtub.
No, I agree. I understand.
And she may have wanted to take it down before and didn't. And so then that's also leaves a bitterness that she's thinking, if I had taken that down, I wouldn't have fallen.
I think the stipulation should be, as long as she replaces it with a tree. And
I agree with that.
It
I
can't
agree.
be a Bradford pear.
I agree with that. I do think if someone takes a tree down, they should replace and put another tree up in close
Right, I agree.
proximity.
What if it would have been an acorn from somebody else's tree and she fell and hurt
Yeah.
herself?
See, that's the thing. We have the white acorns, so we get acorns every single year. I mean, this is be a squirrel's paradise in our
Yeah.
backyard. But But they do go into our neighbor's yard. Our neighbor has one of the, I guess, not cotton, the tree that has all the cotton coming out of it, which
Cottonwood,
covers,
yeah.
cottonwood, which covers our yard in snow and it blocks our air conditioner. So we have to go out and clean the air conditioner. I mean, the tree doesn't just stay in your yard. Whatever happens goes into everybody else's
Right.
yard.
And that's the beauty of living here with all the big trees.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. The man down the street just cut a big tree down. I don't know what kind it was because it was making his car messy in his driveway.
Mhm.
And it was a huge tree. And now he's got a big pile. I guess they took the root out, the stump, I mean. And now, I mean, he's got a huge pile that's been there for 2 or 3 weeks now. And I think, why haven't they taken that away?
Mhm.
It's in the grass. But he cut the tree down because it messed up his car in the driveway. I thought, oh my gosh.
Gary, do you know much about the appeal process to the Board of Adjustment?
I don't know if this is. I don't know if this is something voted.
What's that?
I don't know what that is.
It's some feedback.
Aliens.
Oh, that's better.
I'm gonna have to leave the meeting on my laptop. I'm going in on my phone because the internet is so bad.
Oh, that must have been what the sound was.
Roy, you're like me. If you're using your phone for audio, you have to mute it when you're not talking. Otherwise, everyone else's voice will create feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out because I haven't done this too much. So hold on a second.
I think the original intent of this was, I think we brushed up against it, was to keep these developers that were building all these houses out here, to keep from clear cutting the whole area to build their houses. But if at the end of the day, if someone is so naive or really so bitter about that big tree that's been growing in their yard all these years and providing them with all the things that a tree provides, then I don't think you can really stop them.
No, if they want it down, it's gonna go down.
Well, they already started, but had to stop. And they agreed to stop until we can figure out something.
Well, is the tree past recovery now that they cut so much of it down?
I have no idea. I don't know that much about it, so.
Okay.
Carol, you're muted. Carol, I see you talking, but you're muted. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
There she goes.
I didn't do it.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to ask, the garden center is going to be closing. And the gal that, she's the manager there, Kathy, she said that probably will be sold to a developer and they will put apartments or something up there. Because the company is, they own property all over the US and Canada, and the garden center isn't making enough money for them, so they're shutting them down. There's 2 huge trees there. I don't know how old they are, but I mean, you couldn't 2 or 3 people probably couldn't get their arms around them. Are they going to be allowed to bulldoze those down? Because she said she's sure that's what they're going to try and put in there. Would they be able to take those down as a developer?
I can handle that question. So if there's going to be some sort of future business location or whatever, residential, commercial application to what takes place with that garden center property in the future, they'd have to submit a tree preservation plan along with their development plan that would list all the landmark trees on the property.
Okay,
There's some other measures. You look at percentage of canopy. There's a particular percentage they have their target to retain.
oh, okay,
The reason that we have them identify those landmark trees, again, knowing that they're some of the bigger, best benefit producers, Usually there's more involved conversation about measures to try to retain those if they can. Of course,
Okay.
ultimately that plays into that design plan, the development plan. And sometimes those tough decisions had to be made. Now, in those
Okay.
situations, there's replanning measures that have to take place. But of course,
Okay.
you know, in
'Cause
those larger size classes, it's not apples to oranges. You know, we're not taking out a 40-inch
Yeah.
tree and putting a 40-inch tree back. We're taking a 40-inch out and putting multiple smaller
Yeah.
caliper trees in.
Yeah, because Kathy said there's like 7 acres there. She said, so she's sure it won't be another garden center. You know, because this company is not gonna put in something that's not gonna make money. She said that's all they're worried about is making the almighty dollar. And she said they're a multi-million-dollar outfit. They own stuff all over everywhere.
Is that the one over by the Meadows?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, Lake St. Louis Garden Center.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been there for what, 40, 50 years?
No,
It's been under different management during that
Right,
time.
right.
Yeah, but it's been there a
Right.
long time. I assumed another garden center would probably buy them. So that's sad that it's not.
No, this company wouldn't sell to another garden center, I don't think, because it wouldn't make enough money for them. And she said that's all they're interested in.
Yeah.
Well, the reason they're leaving is because the city says they cannot deal with construction people. They can't sell rock and stuff that can have construction company trucks going in and out of there all the time. That's the reason they're leaving.
Yeah, they are. She said that the company is tired of arguing with them, and the people at Waterford Village, that community right behind them, didn't want them to add on to their place, to have the trucks come in and out. But it wouldn't be something that was gonna be all through the night, you know. I don't know. I can't imagine anybody being upset about that beautiful garden being in their backyard. And they've got a big 6-foot fence, so they don't even see the garden center.
Hey, Darren?
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me good. I can't see you because I had to log off my laptop. It was cutting in and out every time I said something.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
I'm on my phone and I think I should be able to get the video, but I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I don't know either. If you just called in, you may have to use your, yeah, I don't know. You can't have both going.
Yeah, I think that's what screwed it up probably because I tried to get the video off phone. I was going to watch it on video on the laptop and listen to it on a voice on the phone, but that doesn't seem to work. So
No, it's going to
I'm
cause a
going-
lot of feedback that way.
yeah, so I'm going to log off the phone too and start the process again that you just sent us for the link.
Okay.
And
And I
should
guess,
go ahead.
and I guess in the essence of time, we should probably move on to the presentation and kind of go through those slides. I think that, I think the landmark tree ordinance should probably be continued. I don't know if we got a good answer. I would like to be able to give this family an answer. So, make a decision on this, and then we can regroup in the next couple months and kind of keep our discussions going on the landmark tree. Does anybody have strong feelings one way or another with this particular situation?
I think we need to keep it going. I don't think we should remove it.
Are you talking about the ordinance or just this one tree?
For now, I'd like to make a decision on this one tree because I don't want to leave this. We have not responded to the family as far as approving or denying their request yet. Wanted to talk to you guys first. So, I think this is going to be a little bit of a longer discussion as far as where we should go with the code. But, maybe we can make the decision on how we should handle this particular instance tonight so we can let this family know what the verdict is.
I think since they've already started cutting it down, they may have already done so much damage that it would die anyway. So since they've started cutting it down, I would allow them to finish.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
do.
Hey,
I'm-
Darren,
But they should have to plant another tree.
Yeah.
No, I can ask them to. The way our code is written, we cannot force them to do that at this point,
Oh,
but I can certainly ask them.
It,
Okay.
in the future, and I
Derek?
don't know, again, I don't know if this is, okay, I'm going to change subjects, so go ahead and get everyone's vote.
hey, Darren,
Yes, Roy?
is there any evidence that it's doing damage to a sidewalk, a driveway, or anything?
They said that it was, I have not been by personally. From the pictures that I saw, the tree's a pretty good distance away from the driveway and I did not see any damage. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't. I just couldn't see any from the pictures.
What address is that, Darren?
yeah, I was just gonna ask the same thing. What's the address on Normandy?
Hold on a second.
40 something.
'Cause I think that
40
might stop.
Carol's
Go
gonna
ahead,
tie
Gary.
herself to the tree.
What is it, Gary?
46 Normandy.
46 Normandy. Okay. I just wanted to drive by and look, see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all for telling them, go ahead and cut it down, I guess.
Okay, and then is everybody okay to continue this, the landmark tree code at our next meeting?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes.
And I
And then
don't know,
just so everybody's clear, obviously the Board of Aldermen is the one who sets the code. So anything that we come up with or any changes is recommendations that would be presented to the board.
okay.
I think the only thing we could do is, or what we could probably look at is defining or clarifying what the dangers are. I think there was something in that ordinance. You said that if it causes any physical danger to the owners or whatever.
That's correct.
So if a tree is doing that, it just needs a visit from the code enforcement and to determine whether it's negligent on the homeowner's part for not taking care of the gumballs or whatever it is, or if it's actually doing something to the sidewalk, the driveway, or something else like that. But I know that's kind of vague, so.
Well, and that is the process now. We do on-site visits to view the tree, to view any damage. But in this case, it's, somebody slipped and fell, and hurt herself pretty bad on an acorn. So that's, something that we can't view. We take their word for it. So I
Well,
think,
So in this,
We just gotta hope and pray it doesn't open up a can of worms for anybody else that says, oh,
Yeah.
well, I slipped on a neighbor's acorn, they gotta cut their tree down.
Mhm.
I mean, I walk my dog and I step on acorns all the time down around the cul-de-sac at the end of my street, but it's something you gotta watch out for. I sure don't want a tree cut down for that reason.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. That's what I'm thinking, but I don't know how to word it to get around that at this
No.
point because they've had an injury
Yeah,
and it's because they did not remove the gumballs. The previous place we lived, we had a gumball tree in the front yard and we raked them up.
mm-hmm,
Well, you
So
know,
that didn't happen.
Mhm.
yeah,
maybe instead of litigating this in the court, like we fined that lady that one time $250, maybe we tweak the ordinance to say if you're gonna cut down a landmark tree, you gotta pay a fee of $500.
right.
And then we
That
can
could be.
put that $500 towards plantings that, it ain't on them, but the city then can use that to replenish our forestation somewhere.
I think that's a great idea.
That is a good idea.
You know, all good thoughts. You know, I think if we're doing something like that, the lawyers would probably need to be involved. I could see where there's a situation where a homeowner thinks that it's a danger. We come out and say, no, it's not a danger, but if you want to remove it, you have to pay us for it. And then that's extortion that we're asking them to replant something. So I think we just need to be careful how we word a code like that. How about I start doing some research and find out any other cities in St. Louis area that has this code. Like I said, I checked a handful of cities today. This code is probably out there somewhere, and I can reach out to that city and find out how, you know, maybe share, get some ideas from them, how they enforce it, what issues they run into, any mitigation that they've done. And then I can bring it back for discussion at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
You asked
Okay.
Matt if he's
Sounds
had
good.
any problems before. Ask Matt if he's had problems before.
Matt Ray?
Matt Ray, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you know,
Gary,
and
are
that's
you
the
okay
other-
with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, you know, and I'll talk to Paul too, and that brings up a good question. And you know, maybe we should have our attorney weigh in on the fact that if we decline a landmark tree removal, does it open the city up to any sort of liability or litigation if that tree would happen to cause damage to a home or whatever the case may be?
Agreed.
Okay, I've got my homework assignment. I'll be ready by next month.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for your help with this.
Aaron, it was an act of God.
Always an act of God.
Okay, you guys still hear me?
Yeah,
Okay. I shut my laptop down, exit Zoom and shut it down, and I'm on the cell phone. But I had a picture and I'm not sure how to get it back.
Jacob,
what's
are you going to be able to
item
share
on
the
the
screen?
agenda?
Okay, we can move on to the next item on the agenda. And that's to approve the minutes from the January 22nd meeting. Does anybody have any questions or I would entertain a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, and I second the emotion.
Okay,
That was a song.
that was what?
I think she took the words out of an old song. I second
Oh.
that.
Oh, second that emotion.
Okay. All in favor, motion pass? Okay,
Okay,
good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Now we're down to a staff report, and it's, I assume this is part of the staff report is educational material for the new park.
Yeah, that's correct. We're working with our IT guy as we speak to try to make sure that this is working. Bear with us for just a second. We hope to share this on the screen with you.
Okay, I think I'm gonna log out on my laptop, on my phone and log back in, see if I can get the video.
I wish I could get the screen.
I want to go up there and catch tarantulas. 4-ounce tarantulas, really? That's the biggest spider in Missouri, huh?
Where was that?
That was in one of the handouts. About that,
It's in the little kids corner blurb for the
Oh.
Glade site. Darren, right now is where it is. There's a little fact about tarantulas as it relates to those finished natural communities.
learn something new every day. Well, we got Jacob. What can I do about these hermit wasps?
About what's that? Hermit wasp?
The hermit wasps. You know, they put their little pod on the limb and then they come out and they're not aggressive at all, but they're annoying as hell.
So are you talking about the wasps that create the galls on pin oak
Yeah,
twigs?
yeah.
Unfortunately, the solution for that really is
Cut the tree
mechanical removal. So
Cut the tree down.
yeah. But you really need to prune out those galls that are created. The problem with those wasps is that they are so small, you really can't get effective control through some sort of insecticide or spray treatment. But I will say that it's very, very rare occasion where I've seen that those pin oak galls lead to the actual mortality of a tree. Now, there are situations where maybe there's some other stressors going on. Maybe it's a bad drought year. It has those galls. It can definitely, through combined factors, lead to mortality of the tree, but it's a rare occasion. The real struggle, there we go. The real struggle is the aesthetics. So.
Did that show up on everybody's screen? I tried to mess with it over here.
Yeah, it looks good.
I can see it, Darren. If you're screen sharing, yeah, I can see it.
Okay, I will. I'll try to work through this then, Jacob. If you kind of maybe want to explain, and then I'll try to share the screen so everybody can see.
Of course, thank you, and I appreciate the order. Let's go 1, 2, then 3, 4, 5. So, in the essence of time, I appreciate everyone being here. But what we want to do is kind of bring you up to speed with the status of these signs that we've been developing for Duello. If you remember the first time Darren kind of gave us a virtual tour, the last time we were all able to meet, we showed you kind of the different locations throughout the facility and some of the photos that Darren had taken during that visit as they relate to these different unique locations. Hold on 1 second here. This first location was kind of what I call the original trail confluence. So if you all can recall, access to this facility was from an adjacent residential development. So it's there's kind of a one-way in, one-way out. You come to a point by a stream crossing and start up the hill. We've had conversations about, right now this is a combined sign. I think in the future, once we have our trail route solidified, we're talking about an additional supplemental sign that would go here in this location that would give indicators about the trail system, information about all the activities available there, park rules, etc. These signs really frame some of the unique aspects of the communities you see at these locations and give some fun, kind of cool tidbits about what's going on. This one in particular, if you recall, you're going up this large slope to the top of the far east side of Duello. So you're walking down to the base of the slope on the west, up to the north-northeast. It really talks about the convergence from one forest type to another. It's really unique where we have some bottomland hardwood forest that comes up the slope to a nice stand of oak trees, predominantly white oaks. I will tell you all, and to talk about homework that Darren was mentioning earlier, what I'd like to see from the board is these, I'm calling them call outs, but right now you see in this example, that one says existing conditions, one says restored glade, one says in progress. You'll see in a second that the actual language associated with this sign, that's applicable to the glade sign we're going to look at next. I already have some thoughts on this in terms of like talking about species composition on these call outs, but I really wanted to see if I could solicit some feedback from the board too about some ideas. You know, each of these signs is also going to include this kind of kids corner fun fact. We talk about some of these call outs, talking about transitions in leaf shapes, talking about transition in foliage color as it relates to moisture composition. So this is our first location. Darren, if you want to jump to the next sign, please.
I will do my best.
There you go. So this is the one that's the most completed product, and this is the one that has the little tarantula tidbit in the "Did you know" in the bottom right that Joe referenced earlier. And the reason I'm saying this is the one that's the most completed is that all the original artwork has also been completed on this sign. So the other ones just kind of have that shadow artwork. I apologize, it hasn't gotten as far along as I anticipated, but all the language on this one is also complete. So this is an example of what we'd call a finished product. Although Darren and I already had some conversations, I think that we may consider some adjustments in some of the language we use for this sign as it relates to in progress. I think the potential of this restoration project, the timeline for it may not be as quick as we were originally anticipating. So maybe some adjustments to saying like future aspirations or something like that in terms of how well it fits this location. If you recall in the original tour, this is the highest point in the park. It's also on the far eastern edge of the park. It's a large open area that was previously overcrowded with a lot of Sericea lespedeza, some cedar trees, some other hardwood species that are intermingled in there. Darren's staff has already been on site and already done some restoration efforts in terms of removing a lot of that, the trees that invaded this open space. So this restoration project has already kind of been conceived and started. And I think ultimately having a potential glade there in that location is something that we're shooting for. So this sign really gives you a look at everything combined in terms of the logoing, all the call outs there, the kids corner facts. Now, any of these adjustments can still be made, but I want to give you an example of what is closest to finished product. Darren, if you want to jump to site 4.
Hey,
Just take a
Darren,
second.
this is Roy.
Yes, Roy?
Oh, good. You can hear me. I'm back on my phone and I can see the video.
This one's going to take just a second to download.
Can you guys still see me?
Yeah.
I can hear you, Carol.
Can you see me? Because I'm turning this off and back on and trying to get it to work and it just won't work.
I don't see
can't,
you. Yeah,
but I'm screen sharing right now.
I don't see you, Carol.
Okay, because I
It just
turned
says
my
Carol.
iPad totally off and I can still hear everybody. I'm totally off and I can hear you all talking.
You have to hang up on the phone. I had to do that on my laptop. And I went to my cell phone. So you have to totally disconnect the voice too.
Okay, here's so this location. It's kind of the inverse maybe of our first site, except not in the same context. This is a different forest type, and if you recall on the original tour, this location is located on the northern end of that open area that we're referring to as a glade site. It's a north-facing slope, and really what we're looking to convey here is the uniqueness of how those type of aspects and access to sunlight and moisture in those unique areas really lends to species diversity and unique animals that utilize this habitat. So it also talks about, again, that kind of that transition, but in an inverse way from that first site 1 and 2, when we're starting at the top of the slope and looking down. And we're also talking about different aspects. And anyone stop me if I'm talking over everyone's head, but when I'm referring to aspect, I'm referring to the relationship to where a particular slope faces the sun. So west-facing aspects, south-facing aspects, which is an example of that first site 1, 2, they're going to have more exposure to the sun. So you're going to have more arid soil types there, some drier soils. Our north and east sites are more protected. Just as we all know, you're not getting as much sun on the north or east, just like the north side of your house gets mildew or mold on the siding sometimes. But that actually lends well to certain tree types that can tolerate some of those shady conditions. In particular, it lends really well to diversity because you have a lot more moisture retention in those areas. And oftentimes they're a little bit more protected sites from the elements. And by that, I mean extreme weather like high winds and other things that trees can be susceptible to in terms of failure. So again, this sign, just like number 2, the custom sketches need to be wrapped up. The fact is there, but these call outs in the middle that have the hash lines before them, they need to be customized. The intro statement under this on the shady side is complete in what we're recommending for this particular location.
And this
I
is,
wanted to-
which site is this, Jacob?
This is site 4.
Okay.
And I want to take one step back. I failed to mention, I apologize, because my chat window, I think, was concealing them earlier, but all the original photography that's on here, Darren did a great job of snapping these for us. And, we had those ones that we took from last fall when we originally showed you all the tour, and then really wanted to go out and get some greener photos. So the photos that are either on the left margin or right margin on our previous examples, those are original photography that are unique to these particular locations. Darren, I think we're ready for the last one.
Okay, and just to make sure everybody has an idea of what we're doing here. So when you enter the park, you walk about a quarter of a mile and you turn right over a creek crossing. And when you start going up the hill, that sign, the first sign that we looked at, will be along the trail, and it'll show you the transition from basically the creek bottom as you go up the hill. Once you get into the glade area, we're looking at putting 2 smaller size pavilions. It's a beautiful open area up there. I don't know if you remember the pictures, but having 2 little pavilions with the glade restoration site materials in front of one of those pavilions. And then this particular educational piece on the back side of that pavilion, looking down the hill, there'll be another seating area. It's going to be kind of a rock area surrounded by boulders with some benches. And then this educational piece will be there. So, I think the intent with this, is that we'll have an interactive park so people can come and enjoy it and have some learning experience for it as well. And I'm going to put you on mute real quick and yell at my kid and get the other slide going.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I think an important thing to kind of frame this up to the board is that we really approached this sign development with exactly what Darren was referring to there. So the fun fact that's in the corner of all these, we've kind of internally been referencing that as a kids corner too, but the idea is that we're appealing to all different age groups that could potentially be using Duello. We talked about that on the front end, like what type of audience are we looking to connect with here? We talked about the general demographic of your Lake St. Louis resident, but I think that this park is going to be used by all ages. Families are going to come to utilize the trail and recreate. So we're trying to impact, all the way to adults down to kids. And really the idea is that we can expose them to all these different natural communities that are kind of in one unique location, and also kind of a unique component of just Lake St. Louis's park system too. I mean, this is a very natural area as it relates to our park system there. There's not as much maintained area. It's going to be a little bit more rugged, and we feel like that the messaging on this really kind of brings you more into that world. You can see at the exact same time in front of you some of the same things that this signage is discussing, and it really just adds to that experience. So this last one, this is a little confusing in terms of the organization on the site, but this is site 5. It was actually kind of more on the southeastern end of the park. If you recall, that trail's a loop, and there's a way to get back down to that back loop. This is a really unique location, only because it's kind of a finger of timber that's dissected from some of the other larger groupings of trees. It's also surrounded by that glade area to the west immediately, and then another open area back on the east side that it goes into that new development. So we're really trying to frame a representation of the significance of edge habitat, and not only that, refuge habitat. You'll see in the interest statement here that it references a few things that are unique to this location, the benefit it provides in minimizing erosion, which we can see in the photo there. On top of that, the species composition of these refuge areas, and how through kind of lack of proactive habitat management, and that I mean the inverse of that would be kind of in the glade restoration project, you know, we're going to be actively in there doing some things to try to get it back to a historical representation of what we're aspiring for. This location would really be something that we'd recommend to just leave alone, leave be. You know, the idea that more vegetation that's there, it's going to lend to some erosion control that's already taking place, but also these refuge areas have significance in terms of how they're utilized by specific species. That edge connection between open area and forest really is utilized by a lot of unique birds, especially predators, and other habitat, or excuse me, other wildlife that just need a place to kind of get away, that maybe isn't impacted as much. When we were there visiting in the fall, there's also a great representation kind of that transition from understory to overstory, even in terms of tree species. So also a good representation of diversity in this location. So you all know that I can ramble on forever. That's really the spiel on the updates on the sign. Again, what I'd like to do here in the next week is kind of solicit just some of your feedback on the overall concept of the sign. I have some language in mind for the different call outs on these that are returning, but I'd love to have some conversations with you all about that. I'm happy to invigorate an email chain maybe this week. I know that a lot of you weren't as exposed to this material on the front end in terms of giving you ample time to review. So I want to make myself available to get, to solicit your feedback and hear your thoughts on it even after the meeting. So please reach out to me with any of your ideas.
How big is that stream?
It's
How big is the stream, Jacob?
I'd really call them.
There are more drainage ditches in there.
Yeah.
There's a pretty significant creek that runs that separates the site from the east and the west, and then there's a couple drainage ditches that lead to that creek. So for the most part, those are dry streams.
Does that creek have a name?
It does not. We actually looked for a name. The Army engineer called it the some no-name tributary that leads to Peru Creek.
Should we give it a name? Name it with the park?
Interesting you mentioned that, Joe. We the park board came up with 3 names: Deer Ridge Park, Exploration Park, and Hidden Bluffs Park. Sent it out for a vote, and we're going to be talking about it at the park board meeting here in a couple minutes. But Deer Ridge Park was the favorite, so if the park board agrees, that's what we're going to recommend as the name of the park.
What's going to be the name?
Deer Ridge Park.
Deer Ridge, is that the one we talked about at that one meeting?
Yes, and some of the reasoning behind that name in particular was you have Quail Ridge Park to the northwest of it. You have Hawk Ridge Park to the southeast of it. So if there's ever a way that we could connect all 3 parks, you would have your Ridge Trail where it would connect Hawk Ridge, Deer Ridge, and Quail Ridge.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I just like the name Deer Ridge. So.
And Deer Ridge and every time we're out there, we see deer. I can send you, if anybody's interested, we were hoping to do a tour of the park with the park board tonight. They haven't finished the creek crossings yet, though. They're still about a week out. So I basically took, I don't know, it was probably 100 pictures just as I'm walking along the trails. I condensed it to about, I think 40 pictures So I'm going to walk through a virtual tour with the park board, but if anybody's interested, I can send you
Yeah.
that presentation just to show you the pictures of the park. It may not make sense,
That would be great.
but sure, I can do
Yeah,
that.
I'd like that.
Mhm.
Me too. I would like that.
Okay,
Yes, I would too.
Yep, put me on the list.
I'll send it to everybody.
Share these sign drafts with them too, Darren. I'd love to hear any additional feedback the park board has too.
Okay,
And I really wish they would have went with Turkey Ridge just to keep with the bird theme, but I understand we've never seen turkeys there too.
Got one on that sign right there.
There is one on the sign. You're right.
So Darren, the winning name is probably Deer Ridge Park?
Deer Ridge, yes.
I like that.
Are we gonna be able to keep these
Okay.
paths clear of gumballs and acorns?
No.
Calm down.
I'm sorry, I need to keep my mouth shut.
So we are
Uh,
still on track to open this park in October. We have a lot of work to do still, but staff, like I said, we went out in January, cut the trails, went back out there on Monday. Some of the trails are grown over, which is just going to be mowing them down, but we'll get a finish grader out there. Probably add some rock in some areas, some mulch in some area. We've got staff made 10 or a dozen benches that are going to be installed out there. We'll have 2 pavilions. The DRB just approved plans for the restroom facility, which would be at the parking lot and trailhead in Windstone subdivision. We put in a new retaining wall to help with the actual entrance of the trails. So we're moving right along. We're really hoping to get this, looking forward to getting this up and running in October.
You may have already said this, but will the trails be suitable for bicycling?
That's going to be a decision with the park board, but yes, as of right now, we're talking about allowing bicycles.
Okay.
But
We
Because of the
probably won't
rain.
get many. I'm sorry, Roy, go ahead.
because of the rain, it's going to be virtually impossible, right?
Yeah,
Well, it'll be like Quail Ridge Park or some of these other native parks where it's closed to bicycle traffic if it's too muddy. It's just a sign they put out and they update a hotline. We probably will not see many mountain bikers. I don't think it's going to be a destination for mountain bikers. It's a 2.5 mile trail. So to mountain bike that, we're probably not hitting that target group, but there are, a lot of homes in that subdivision. I bet there'll be a lot of kids on their dirt bikes riding around there.
Will it be handicap accessible?
It is not. It's
Uh-uh.
all nature trails.
Yeah.
are you gonna have stations where there's bags for people that walk their dogs and don't pick up the poop?
There'll be doggy bag stations just like our other parks, and then we'll have some trash cans placed periodically throughout the park, mostly up by the pavilion area. Just because along the creek there, we do get some flooding, so putting trash cans down there might be kind of tough.
So when did you say the pavilions were under construction, or when will they be finished?
We're going to be talking about that at the park board meeting tonight about the pavilions that we'd like to see. And I'm hopefully going to be ordering those next week. And then it's about a 2-month turnaround from order to delivery. And then depending on how long it takes our staff to put it up, we're probably looking at August before those are installed.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else? And Jacob, you said you want to initiate an email discussion this week on the
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Roy.
educational pieces. Is this something the board would like to have
Sure.
unanimous?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. I don't think we need a motion for that. We can just do it because it's all part of development of the park.
And let's
And we
just
can,
share some ideas and then maybe at the June meeting, we can get these educational pieces finalized.
right, that's where I'm headed, yeah. So we
Okay,
can share the
perfect.
ideas now, and we'll revisit this just on with our ideas. We don't want to go back over things and belabor the issue. But I think he's done a good job on the pieces that I saw. So we can do that this week and get back online in June and start do you need our approval?
I'm sorry?
You will need our approval, I assume?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tree board is a intricate part of this process. So getting your all's approval on these educational pieces will be a big bonus for us.
Okay. So board members, I think we could be ready for that next meeting, correct?
Yep.
Okay, good. Is there anything else on this issue before we move maybe to board discussion, or does anybody else have anything on it?
And I do apologize. I don't want to cut anybody off. If we have board discussion, we are going to have to make it a little quick. My park board meeting is going to start here in a few minutes.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, the only question we're still on hold, I guess, for the Arbor Day celebration and all those activities.
No, our day camp has been canceled.
yep.
So there's no Arbor Day then.
Not scheduled at this time. Jacob did say that due to COVID-19, the Arbor Day Foundation has basically waived the necessity to have the Arbor Day ceremony this year and still meet Tree
Oh,
USA
okay.
requirements. But I think, it's something that maybe we can look to if we do want to do something. Maybe
In the
this fall,
fall.
things will open up a little bit.
Yeah.
So the next meeting will have to be with Zoom, you thinking?
I believe City Hall is, as long as City Hall is closed, we'll be doing Zoom meetings. So I guess we'll know once we get a little bit closer to the third weekend or the third Tuesday in June.
Okay. Is there any other issues?
I got a question. Where do we stand with our EAB? How many trees, are we keeping any track of how many trees we've lost, or the ash trees that have been cut down?
We haven't been keeping track of residential trees that are down. The parks went through a couple years ago and removed all the ones that were in manicured areas of the park. I think there was 4 or 5 that we've been treating for saving, but I don't know as far as HOAs and homeowners, what our population right now is in Lake St. Louis.
I know Margaret had said there was like 1,200 trees on the right of ways.
Yeah,
Right.
I remember she did a
Right.
count on those. It was a lot.
Right.
Okay. Is there any other issues? Otherwise, we could have entertain a motion to adjourn.
I
Do you have
move to
anything else?
adjourn.
Second.
You have anything else, Darren?
No, sir.
Okay,
I move to adjourn.
I second.
okay. Motion made and second to adjourn. All in favor?
All right.
Hi.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
yeah, we'll
Thank
see you
you.
we'll
Oh,
talk
next
on,
week at City Hall.